cops find convict who survived 4 years in secret underground bunker. Interesting. By Coffeehouse Crime Channel. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's watch it.
Beneath the floor of a forgotten forest and hidden in plain sight was a secret world. A world which was one man's twisted version of freedom. From here, you could find a world of wires, water filters, solar panels, and silence. And for almost 3.5 years, nobody knew that some—
Is this considered a bunker? Oh no, what is underneath? That's showing now, right? I mean, right here. It is?
someone was living here. However, when a weary hunter stumbled across the area and found him, he realized that this man wasn't merely hiding from society, but also from justice. Welcome back to Coffee.
I didn't know that, but but when I hear usually the word bunker, I have like an image that is something like underground, like under Earth surface level, like how I'm supposed to say this, how I'm supposed to explain. Some kind of shelter from similar to tornadoes and etc. This is the image I have here, like. So bunker is just something like just like some hidden house somewhere that you, I mean, that's it. It's just like that. When I read on the title bunker, I had this image that like the guy was living underground, some stuff like that.
Coffeehouse crime, folks.
By the way, we don't have
Adrian,
this
and
stuff
today,
here.
We're heading underground to look at one of the strangest stories I've come across. Now, this one is a little bit different
like
to the
underground
usual format,
shelters.
but I'm sure you'll find it interesting. It's all about isolation, secrets, and evading the law. Oh, and by the way, don't be idolizing this guy, because despite the wild adventure, he definitely is a sicko. Anyway, let's get straight into this one.
If you would construct one here, I don't even know if our laws allow this, because our laws here are just disgustingly weird. But even if you're allowed to, people probably will find very weird that you have something like that on your house or whatever place you decide to build one. People will just find it weird that you construct something to protect yourself on the ground, you know, like on the ground surface level, like for hurricane, like a hurricane shelter, storm shelter or something like that.
So please grab yourself a coffee, subscribe
it's not
if you
common
haven't yet,
here.
and let's investigate. This is
moreover because everyone here tends to pay too much attention, like way too much attention in other people's lives, you know, and they are constantly desiring. It's not desiring the words I'm looking for. It's they are constantly expecting, like craving. Yes, craving. They are constantly craving for your demise. I don't think demise is the correct word. They are always constantly craving for your lose, you know? They don't want to see other people succeeding. Like it's it's something that is inherently inside people here. They envy people's like lives because they are like too much accommodated to pursue their own success, to pursue better conditions of life to them. So when they see people like actually having some themselves to their lives, pursue something better, like actually crave for more, to live their condition to be better, they envy them. And they do real bad stuff with them. I think I've said this before here, but oh my god, we are like going so far away off the reason of this video, so let's get back. I'm sorry.
It's the case of Jeremiah
but I know
Button.
Some of you find this interesting, this stuff. Jeremiah Bottom. I hope it's said correctly.
Today, we begin with a strange story from Wisconsin. Going straight to the story's predator, we meet a man named Jeremiah.
Wisconsin?
And although Jeremiah lived what many would call
What
an
there
ordinary
is in
life,
Wisconsin?
it eventually wouldn't ring true. Born in April of 1975, he grew up in a small town near Warsaw. The kind of place where, at the time, you would never really lock your front doors, and where your neighbors probably knew your middle name. Now, Jeremiah was not particularly well known, but he wasn't invisible either. To most people, he was just that quiet and slightly odd guy who mostly kept to himself. He was interested in computers, seemed intelligent, and didn't cause much trouble, at least for a while. Now, Jeremiah had a knack for many things. He was proficient with electronics, knew basically everything about mechanical engineering, and understood key survival skills. You could also say that he had a high IQ, but would also make poor decisions in, well, several other ways. And I'm not saying that as an observation, by the way, because they are his very own words. By the time he reached his late 30s,
Oh my
Jeremiah
God.
still lived quietly with his parents in a modest home. However, beneath that quiet surface was a man who was hiding a very dark secret. And when it finally came to light, well, let's just say that it shocked the entire community. Despite the quiet facade, it turns out that Jeremiah had actually been committing horrific crimes under his parents' very own roof for several years. And I'm not talking about just once or twice here,
How?
but a myriad of times. Between the years of 2006 and 2012, making him 31 to 37 years at the time,
Like how he was committing this type of stuff, like living with the I don't remember now its parents. Like how? Or how? I don't understand. Like unless he did something online, but the intent of what this guy said, it says the idea that that he implies is that he committed like something physically there, like some action really there and not online. But yeah, let us see.
he'd been persuading a minor to do unspeakable things with him. And to make matters even worse, it turns out that his victim was even related to him. Tragically, this went on for several years, and his family, they were none the wiser.
Oh, it
But when
was,
his victim
yeah,
was
it was
finally
really
old enough to grasp
there
what
and
had
not
happened,
online.
that is when she
Oh my
finally
God.
spoke out. And that happened only 2 years later in the year 2014. With her testimony
Hell
in
no.
hand, police officers executed a search warrant on Jeremiah's family home. They seized his computer and all of his devices. And what they found was absolutely horrifying. Inside were not hundreds, but thousands of images and videos of underage content. And if that wasn't disturbing enough already, authorities also uncovered footage that he had filmed himself. And from what we can gather from the warrants, it was really vile stuff. In terms of authenticity,
Oh my
the
God.
footage was said to be time-stamped and even matched to the room inside his home. So, officers knew it was definitely him. As a result, he was arrested and then charged with a long list of felonies, which you can see on the screen here. Now, I think all of you
Oh
would
my
agree
God,
that
it's
it
a
was the
lot
kind
there.
of case that should have definitely put him behind bars immediately. But unfortunately, that would not be the case, and instead, something far more bizarre happened. Despite the overwhelming amount of evidence against him, Jeremiah was granted release on a $25,000 bond. As a result, he was forced to surrender his passport, and essentially was banned from using the internet. Oh, and also was restricted from leaving the area. As far as I could tell though, he could actually go all around the state without any supervision. So, essentially, he was free. And this is where it begins to become quite strange. On the surface, Jeremiah appeared compliant and showed up to all of his pre-trial hearings. He also met with his lawyer and gave no indication of fleeing, at least not yet. But behind the scenes, well, he was quietly executing a plan. And then, in 2016, and only 2 weeks before his trial was set to begin, Jeremiah vanished. And I mean quite literally disappeared without a trace. Most of the people on the outside thought that he had simply run off, while others began to speculate that maybe he had made one too many enemies. Meanwhile, his family, well, they thought they knew, but in reality, they actually didn't. Apparently, Jeremiah left a note for his mother on the kitchen counter claiming that he was leaving for Florida to start a new life. Even so, officers couldn't actually trace a single movement beyond that point, and so even they had doubts. With no signs or leads, the authorities placed Jeremiah Button at the very top of their most wanted list. But unfortunately, every public tip would lead to a dead end, and they were none the wiser as to where he may have disappeared. But the truth is that Jeremiah did not actually.
Yeah, now I'm reading the title again. It really says underground bunker, but it doesn't seem to like underground. I mean, he will show the photos, I believe. It really doesn't seem underground. Or there's something wrong with my understanding. I'm not sure. The photos that were shown before, like, doesn't. I think I'm paid too much attention in not that important stuff, but I just want to know.
Actually run very far. He didn't board an aeroplane or even cross any state lines, and instead, he merely vanished into the woods. And it would stay that way for quite a while too, because for the next 3.5 years, not a single soul would see him again. Fast forward 3.5 years, and it is now August of 2019. America was enjoying yet another quiet summer. Some could even argue the last normal one that we had ever experienced. And deep in the rural woods of Wisconsin, a man named Tom Nelson was out on his usual walking route. As a very well-seasoned outdoorsman, Tom knew these forests like the back of his hand. He had hunted these trails for several years, getting to know the terrain and the people around the small town of Ringgold. For the most part, the woodlands that surround this area are peaceful. The Ice Age Trail, which cuts through.
Oh my
this
God!
region,
So
offers
if it wasn't for this man, the guy would probably still be there.
Beauty. But saying that, there was also one patch of the forest that had now been bothering Tom for several months, and there was something that he just couldn't shake out of his gut instinct. You see, a few months prior and back in November of 2018, Tom had spotted something odd. From what he remembered, it was a bitterly cold day, and with this being Wisconsin, there was snow everywhere. As you can imagine, snow does not let much slip by unnoticed. You take a step, and there's a footprint, and you brush past a branch, and there's disturbed foliage. And, well, if you fall over, yup, you've got a butt print. And for someone like Tom, who I already mentioned was a seasoned hunter, those clues were as clear as trail markers. So, when he noticed unusual tracks, that being snow that had been deliberately brushed away by pine branches, well, Tom knew that someone was trying to cover up their path. And of course, that led him to the next question, why? Curious by the markings, Tom followed the trail, and that is when he found something that he never expected. A hidden door that seemed to be built right into the hillside. At first, Tom wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but that is when he noticed a makeshift septic system nearby, and let's just say that, by his eyesight and his nose, he could tell it had definitely had some use. Both uneasy and unsure of what he had just stumbled upon, Tom then left the area and tried to put it out the back of his mind. And he did even call the police to report it, but without any clear directions, they couldn't find the spot he was talking about. And so, with no answers and that mystery still gnawing away at him, Tom decided to return only a few months later, determined to uncover what exactly or who exactly was hiding in those woods.
Okay. I know that the guy is in the wrong in everything else. I mean, he's a criminal, but you don't find that weird? Someone like being so curious, like with other people's wives, like instead of just letting them home, like sees like my country behavior, my country people behavior, Well, that's very much weird. The guy could probably be doing literally anything else in his life, but he was like. He just couldn't help himself but kept thinking about that stuff over and over again until he finally decides like, oh, I must to discover who is behind that footprints in the house. Like, oh my God. That's so fucking real. That's so, I mean, of course I'm not defending the guy. The guy's a criminal, but I'm saying that you don't find this stuff very weird that someone is really like very, very much interested in like you uncovered this so much. I mean, he doesn't even know if the guy's criminal or not. Chances are that the guy like, I mean, it's weird for someone to believe in that, but chances are that the guy like it's not, Like at least it's what we expect that Like, in a place like that, like, it's not a majority of people that are criminals, that is still a minority, so chances are that he's not, but no, the guy decided to go there, like, discover what's going on, like, oh my god.
The entrance was basically
I find that very
weird,
weird, sorry, I find that very weird.
20 feet.
It's like as if the guy is a criminal himself too, I don't know. Like, I don't know, maybe looking for an opportunity or whatever, I don't know, I'm just speculating things.
Away from it and never know it was there. But eventually, Tom spotted it once again, and this time, he was ready. As he approached the doorway, his hands trembled with fear and excitement. He didn't know whether he was about to step into some random...
You know that phrase like, what makes a criminal is the opportunity? You know? It's a phrase that we have here in Brazil. I just rightfully translated it, like, literally translated it. I don't know if it makes sense for you guys out there. Like, some expressions that I just translated from here to there just sometimes doesn't make sense, but yeah.
Abandoned shelter, or actually someone's home. And what if they had a gun? Very slowly, he pushed the door open, and as the dust began to settle, he could finally see inside. And that is when he saw all of it. There was canned food, cardboard boxes, stray wires, and a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, still swaying gently in the air. But there was more too. And this is where the story becomes almost surreal, because what Tom had just stepped into wasn't merely some abandoned hideout, or even a harmless camping site in the woods, but instead, he had unknowingly entered the secret underground bunker of Jeremiah Button. Despite the note he had left behind for his mother, claiming that he had run off to Florida, Jeremiah hadn't actually fled the state at all. He wasn't homeless, and he certainly hadn't been murdered. Instead, he had built a life for himself right here in the middle of these woods. Looking at aerial shots from above, the bunker was literally invisible, perfectly camouflaged beneath a tangle of branches.
Oh yeah, it's really underground.
In fact,
wow.
He'd even encouraged heavy undergrowth in the area around his bunker to make it basically inaccessible, which meant that, to anyone walking past it, the bunker looked like just another subtle rise in the forest floor. But underneath the leaves and dirt was an entirely different world. The entrance was hidden beneath a sheet of plywood and covered in forest debris. Found below was a hand-dug tunnel which was around 4 feet deep, a tunnel which led into a concealed chamber only big enough to lie down and move around in. Above ground, a solar panel had been mounted high enough to catch the light above the tree line, which then provided power to a series of basic electronics. Several homemade battery banks which were found inside were used to store that energy, and rather surprisingly, when sunlight wasn't enough, Jeremiah had wired up a stationary bike to generate extra charge, literally pedaling his way to power while staying fit. He also had a fully functional radio tuned to weather updates and local broadcasts.
Oh my god.
For hydration, water jugs were found scattered around the place, alongside a rudimentary filtration system which could then collect and clean rainwater. Shelves were lined with hundreds of canned goods, grains, and dried foods, all of which were carefully stockpiled and rationed to last him a lifetime. The entire bunker had been blanketed in tarp to help keep it dry, and a ventilation shaft brought in fresh air, which allowed Jeremiah to stay underground for long periods of time. However, one of the craziest details to all of this is that on one of the walls inside was a flat-screen television. Not only was this TV hooked up to the solar power, but it was also positioned so that Jeremiah could watch from his makeshift bed. It was also set up with both a DVD player and a VHS system, and to add a little bit of weirdness to the mix, many of the DVDs nearby were children's shows and cartoons. There were kettles, frying pans, axes, shovels, and buckets. Whatever you can think of, Jeremiah had it. From camouflage netting to hand-packed insulation, he thought of literally everything to help keep him comfortable. I mean, the man...
But what I ask myself watching this is like, he built all of this after getting caught about that problem that he had with his parent, or I don't know what had under the parents, not parents, like, oh my god, with a member of his family, I don't know. Like, he decided to build all of this after that, or he was already preparing for it and was building so, because it doesn't seem like something that you just do from one day to another. I have no idea how much time it takes to build something like this, but like it's just not this. Like it's preparing. Like the guy probably studied this a long time before. Like, oh my god, I cannot see this. Like I cannot see this working. Like if he had like to build everything from scratch. When that happened, probably the guy was preparing all of this before already. I'm not sure. I'm just wondering.
The man had even let his appearance change after all these years, growing out both his hair and his beard to help blend into the wilderness. And like I said, the bunker was so...
Yeah. He actually had time. I mean, he was like waiting for the trial. And within that time, like he was free to move around and do whatever he wanted to. So probably he was already preparing this bunker previously before the trial and was already done or mostly likely done when the trial was close to happen.
Well hidden that nobody would see it. Of course, apart from Tom Nelson. In fact, the only clues that may have possibly given it away was a tin can chimney, 8 small solar panels, and an antenna taped to a tree. However, before we take a look at how he survived out here for so long, let's first take a look at where he chose to hide, because the location was all part of his strategy. Hidden away on state land, Jeremiah chose his bunker site in the small town of Ringgold, which conveniently is concealed within hundreds of acres of dense Wisconsin forest. It's worth noting here, this is roughly 150 miles away from Richfield, which is the place where he lived with his mother. He picked this spot for its isolation and for its proximity to the Marathon County landfill, and he would visit this place almost every single night to scavenge for food and supplies. From everything that I've been able to gather online, the bunker was located around half a mile north of the landfill, around 500 feet from the Ice Age Trail, on a south-facing embankment and near a swamp. The bunker was also on an angle and likely facing south to help his solar panels catch...
I don't know because I don't live in US, of course, but this kind of thing is common. I mean, it's the first time I see a crime like this, a criminal like this that constructed a bunker. So maybe I'm wrong talking about the guy, but maybe the guy was doing that because I'm just thinking about this now, but maybe the guy was so curious about that and was like wanted to know what's going on because it's something common for criminals to doing there. I don't know, because here people don't have bunkers, so don't construct bunkers. So yeah, it's not a thing here. So maybe I misunderstood because of this. I don't know. Let me know. Let me know in the comments, please, more about this stuff. Because I have no actual idea. And for engagement as well, you know that. It helps.
Maximum sunlight. Now, based on all of this information, that would place him either here or here on the map. And if I zoom out, you can now see just how remote the area really is. But with that said, if things ever got very desperate for Jeremiah, or if perhaps maybe he was just craving a Hershey's bar, there was also a Dollar General store not too far away. After choosing this location, he then quietly began to carve out his new home, digging roughly 12 to 15 feet into the embankment. During many trips between Richfield and Ringgold, he stockpiled canned foods and supplies, and bought in bulk to transport them little by little. Nobody asked Jeremiah any questions because, first of all, he wasn't breaking any laws, and also, he wasn't violating his bail conditions. As his trial date approached, Jeremiah quietly made his move. That is when he left his car behind, abandoned his ID, and left his wallet. Meanwhile, writing a note to his mother claiming that he was heading to Florida, and, of course, then he vanished. To avoid being caught by any surveillance cameras, Jeremiah buried himself in coal on a freight train. From there, he trekked 2 days on foot to the bunker, which he had spent nearly 2 whole years constructing. And let's be honest, by then it likely already felt like home to him. In fact, as the months turned into years, Jeremiah even expanded his bunker, not only digging a well, but even remodeling the place when he began to run out of room. Through the brutal Wisconsin Wisconsin winters, he survived on wood that he had stockpiled and burned in a fire pit that he had carefully designed to produce minimal smoke. And when it snowed, well, he would walk in loops, brushing away his footprints with tree branches to avoid leaving a trail. Ironically though, it would be that very act that would eventually lead someone directly to him. Which brings us back to the day that Tom Nelson slowly stepped inside his bunker. However, as dramatic as that might sound, the actual encounter was surprisingly underwhelming. After walking in and turning his flashlight on, he swept across the space, spotting pots, pans, and tinned food. And then, as he passed over the bed, he saw something immediately shift. It was Jeremiah, and he was staring right back at him. Tom didn't say a word. Completely shocked by the situation, he simply turned around, walked out, and then called the police. When deputies finally arrived, they then tried to convince Jeremiah to come out, but for the next 20 minutes he desperately resisted, instead telling them that he was a wanted man. In fact, at one point he even considered setting himself on fire rather than being taken in, but eventually changed his mind. When Jeremiah finally surrendered, he wasn't hostile whatsoever. In fact, he was both calm and friendly, and after years of near total isolation, he even seemed relieved. And apparently, one of the first things he said to officers was how nice it was to finally have some human contact. And honestly, that's not too surprising, because after more than 3 years living off-grid, alone, in silence, and beneath the forest floor, this was basically the first proper conversation that he had had in a very long time. After being discovered, Jeremiah went into custody without a fight. He was calm, cooperative, and even seemed relieved.
It's very weird, that, we claim so much for silence. Even more in the place where I live, where we don't have silence, never. You guys probably don't know, but most of the times that I record videos, there is always very loudly music playing, and cars with very annoying sounds coming from speakers, every 30 minutes or 1 hour or so, another car passes by with annoying loudly speakers again, and I mean everything, literally motorcycles making very loudly noise, on purpose, just because they took I forgot the name, mufflers. They took that piece that from which the air escapes, just in purpose to make noise. I fucking hate them. And all of this makes very, very, it's terrible. And all I desire, all I wish is from, sometimes it's just disappear and go somewhere to a place like that, just to be silenced, just to be far away from all of this noise. And I just can't, But, imagine being 3 or 4 years like that, he was total silence, yeah, maybe it wouldn't be cool, who knows, but at the moment all I can think of is have some silence. I cannot deny that.
A fugitive from the Wausau area is back behind bars this morning after a hunter discovered him hiding in a bunker. This is a remarkable story. Look at this video here. Police say the makeshift hideout was carved into the hillside and covered with logs. Jeremiah Button lived there for 3 years, living off items that he found in the landfill, which was a half-mile away. It was even outfitted with electricity and a water filter system. Tom Nelson described what he found back on August 9th.
And then I come around the corner a little bit, and there he is, laying in his bed. I mean, I was shaking when I went in. I was shaking when I went out.
Button vanished in 2016, just weeks before he was set to stand trial on child sex charges.
He was then held on a $100,000 bond, which, honestly, I kind of find to be a strange decision, because, well, I mean, it's kind of obvious. If Jeremiah had already managed to disappear into the woods after being released on bond once, then apart from the money, what was really going to stop him from doing it again? During his interviews, Jeremiah admitted that he hadn't told a single
Yeah, law being inefficient again. What a surprise, huh? What a surprise.
soul about the bunker. Not friends, not family, literally no one. In fact, he even claimed that he had zero contact with any of his loved ones ever since the day he vanished. Basically, he lived in total isolation, barring the occasional exchange in words with nearby hikers who sometimes passed by. It was, by his own admission, an incredibly lonely existence. Back at the bunker, which by now had become the scene of a full-blown investigation, police officers executed a search warrant, before then seizing several hard drives and many electronic devices. At first, there were several concerns that the previously recovered evidence may no longer be admissible after so much time had passed. However, the prosecution was quick to clarify that that would not be the case. They highlighted that the evidence collected in 2014, back when the initial charges were filed, were all still intact, and that the video footage of the abuse conducted by Jeremiah had been preserved. In 2020, Jeremiah Button pleaded no contest to multiple felony counts, including child enticement and possession of child pornography. As part of a plea deal, several other charges were dropped, but the weight of his crimes was still more than heavy enough. And
yeah,
so,
which
as
is
a
also
result, he
normal,
was
as I
sentenced to
saw
34
many
years in
times
prison,
already.
meaning that by the time he gets out of prison,
What? How many years?
sentenced to his pornography. As part of a plea deal, several other charges were dropped, but the weight of his crimes was still more than heavy enough, and so, as a result, he was sentenced to 34 years in prison, meaning that by the time he gets out of prison,
34
he will be
years?
74 years old. The friends and family of his victim
Oh my
were all
God,
relieved
yeah,
to
that's
hear
a
his
lot, even
sentence,
dropping.
with Jeremiah even addressing the courtroom with his own apology.
I have no excuse for what I've done, nor can I explain it. I know at the time I came up with justifications for it, but the bottom line is I was sick and out of my mind.
To add to this, Jeremiah also
But probably he has more years because he disappeared for this time. Probably if he presented himself when he was called, probably we had faced less, at least 20, 25, I'm not sure, just guessing.
said that he decided to live in the woods as it was his own personal way of punishing himself for his crimes. However,
I mean, at least it's what I believe, that's what happens, right? If you have to present for a trial or something like that, and you do not, you will face even more time in jail because it's also a crime. I'm not sure. I don't understand, so, but I believe that it's a crime for not presenting yourself for the trial day. I don't know.
if you ask me, I think he was just terrified of what inmates would do to people with crimes like his. To this day, Jeremiah Button remains behind bars in a Wisconsin State Correctional Facility, with his underground bunker now nothing more than a strange and unsettling footnote in the story of a man who tried to run from justice, but couldn't hide forever. In August of 2021, the state's Department of Natural Resources officially dismantled his bunker. It took several days and a full crew of people to help clear it out, because, as you've seen, there was a lot of stuff crammed inside. Eventually, the entire structure was filled in, including the massive homemade septic system, which, yes, was still full of human poop. Today, all that remains is a patch of uneven ground, with no entrance, no signs, and no clues.
We didn't need this information. Of course, we were aware that he... Oh God, oh no.
It's just a quiet clearing in the woods, where a very strange chapter has now finally come to an end. And that is the bizarre story of Jeremiah Button. You know, it is actually a shame that this guy is such a vile scumbag, because if his crimes had been different for, I don't know, fraud or unpaid taxes, or maybe not paying the council, then many people would actually see this man as an off-grid hero. I'm thinking like Killdozer, but the bulldozer doesn't move. But unfortunately, with crimes like this, there is no coming back. Anyway, I just wanted to talk about this story because I find anything secret, hidden, or underground to be, well, mildly thrilling, I guess. And this one definitely ticks all those boxes. It is a very weird one for sure. Anyway, I hope you don't mind the detour from our usual stories. But as always, share your thoughts down below. I try to read as many comments as possible. And I know this video is slightly shorter than usual, but it's actually for very good reason. Would you believe it that I'm actually spending time away and having a couple weeks off? I haven't actually left yet, but this video is planned to be released once I return. Anyway, I'm spending time with family and friends back in the UK, and honestly I can't wait, and I'm sure I'm gonna have fun. By the way, is it only me that feels really guilty leaving pets on holiday? I'm already missing Nero. Anyway, thank you so much for watching today, folks. I really do appreciate you making it this far. If this case gave you chills or made you check your basement, then please do consider subscribing. I make up to 2 videos a week here.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll see you again very soon, likely in a week's time. Until that moment arrives though, remember
If
to look
we
after
had
yourselves,
basements
look
in
after each
Brazil.
other, and of course, stay curious. Thank you, and goodbye.
Before we go any further, I want to take this brief moment here to thank all of you, my patrons, that support my work here on YouTube, and especially my 5-tailed fox tier member, Zalost, and my 3-tailed fox tier members, Heath Rowell, Fenny Sylvy, and Radmuiel, for the incredible support to my work. Thank you very, very much. You guys are amazing. Also, thanks to everyone who donated to me through Tron and to all of my YouTube members. You can support this channel life and growth with just $5 a month and gain access to many perks. This is less than a burrito. Check out my Patreon. Link is in the description below. Yeah, that's it. This video is more bigger than enough already. Yeah. It was very interesting, very exquisite in some ways, and probably I will learn something, which are comments below, so please let comments about all the questions I made and my doubts. I will like to understand better a lot of things, and don't forget to like, comment, subscribe as always. Check the links below, Patreon, Discord, Ko-Fi, and Tron. Support me so I can live in this fucking country as fast as possible, and I see you all in the next one. Bye.